Greetings, Earthlings. Today we're going to go over proper running form. Now, also, pardon me, I'm going to have to look down my notes for a little bit. First thing I want to say is I actually don't consider myself qualified to give you guys a very great treatment on proper running form, but there are a lot of areas that I think I can give you some kind of low-hanging fruit, really good tips regardless. So, I've never been a professional sprinter. I was never on like a high school track and field team. So, there's folks out there that if you really want to get improve your running form to in terms like get competitive times or really get a top notch, you need another video. I'm talking about just basic healthy biomechanics, so to avoid pain. I'm not talking about elite performance here. All right. Although this would still apply. All right. Now, second thing, quick medical disclaimer. I'm not a doctor or medical professional. Please do anything I say at your own risks. Please, you may want to consult with your doctor. I'm sharing what has worked well for me. Also, some things I say, there'll be at least one part in this video where a lot of folks might find it controversial. So, do your own judgment. I'm giving you my thoughts. Now, I'm going to go over largely three main tips. So the three main tips are going to be proper stride, glute activation, and forefoot instead of rear foot, or roughly speaking, going toe, landing on your toe versus landing on your heel. This is actually like toe or midfoot. So 1 and 2 I think are pretty non-controversial. 3, I feel very strongly about number 3, but just know that there's still a little controversy, and I know some people in the comments might say you're totally wrong or whatever. That's fine. So just if 3 is not your cup of tea, then disregard it. So number 1, proper stride. So for example, before I even go into that, in the links in the description, I will link several great resources, so make sure you check that out. The description will have, they're really going to complement it. Like, just for example, one of the links will talk about, like Jeff from Athlete X, he'll talk about like things for flat feet. There's just going to be a lot of great stuff. So I really recommend, for the completeness of this video, if after you've seen this, go and follow up with the links in the description. All right, that said, proper stride. If your stride is too long, let's say, your foot's landing out way in front of you. So when you're landing on it, you're actually braking with your quad, and you're going to be hitting your knee. So basically, that's going to be terrible for your joints, your knee. If you're getting a lot of pain, both for purposes of pain, but also like for speed, if you want to run faster or change things, like you're getting too tired, proper stride, I think, is fairly agreed upon by experts that working on that, if your stride is too long, shortening your stride or maybe playing around with your stride is a pretty big component. So a good stride means that when you're landing on your foot, it comes down right below you. Now, when you're in the air, it can be in front of you, but by the time you land, your body should be over your foot. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to leave it at that. The links in the description will tell you guys more if you want to follow up. Number 2 is glute activation. Just like we talked about in the walking video, and let me actually jump to the next part. So these are going to be the 3 main things, but there'll be a ton of little things. So having your toes forward instead of, let's say, going out like sideways like a duck, toe and knee tracking. I mentioned this in an earlier video, but I'll just say this. I've seen, for some reason, particularly on female runners, I suspect this is a muscular imbalance, could be pelvic tilt, could be several factors, but there's often the knees caving in. So you might have seen, it could be boys or girls, but I just happen to see it a lot more on girls, where as they're running, the knees are just caving in, and the legs are kind of like, instead of going up right behind them, the legs are going up to the side and the knees are caving in. So that's going to do a number on your knees, so you want to really watch out for that. No pelvic tilt. So these are basically all the stuff from the standing and the walking videos we've done previously on the channel. An engaged core. Now, I've underlined engaged because there's a little bit of misunderstanding there, and it can be tricky if you're not used to it. Engaged does not mean you're tightening your abs like you're doing a crunch. Engaged just means a little bit active, to the point where you're not like so relaxed that your body is just falling over like spaghetti. There's really a sweet spot, so you want to really play around with it. You should feel like you have extra stability when it's engaged, but you shouldn't feel like you're getting tired. So play around with that. Deep breathing. I'm gonna do a huge treatment of that later on, so I'm just gonna say, make sure your breathing is really important. That will definitely help your form. I'll leave it at that. Proper arm swing, we talked about that in the walking video. You don't want your elbows going off to the sides. You don't want to swing too high, and you want to be swinging from the shoulder and not at the elbow and bending like that. So go watch that video if you haven't. Head forward, and then up, again, applying stuff from the previous video. Neck, shoulder, hunching. So a lot of times I see runners, they're kind of hunched like this, and I'll mention that in the next video. But as bad as these problems were when you were standing and walking and sitting, when you're running, if your head or anything is forward, it becomes a projectile. So it's like bam, bam, bam. That's really terrible, because now this extra motion, imagine what that's doing to your joints and your spine. You have this, the bad posture is now, the effect is exaggerated because of the ballistic nature of running. So make sure you get your standing and walking and sitting posture before you even try to mess with the running stuff. All right, so that said, these are the details. The glute activation, same thing as the running. You should feel your butt and posterior chain. Posterior means behind you. So you should feel your butt, hamstrings, primarily your glutes. You should feel that really working. I know a lot of people, including myself in the past, would just like pick up their feet in front of them like they're marching, or like doing like high knee jumps. It shouldn't feel like you're doing high knees all the time. In fact, I don't know that this is the best cue, but I heard somebody mention this, and this really worked for me. So especially for sprinting, like the faster you go, the more I found this tip useful, but it's useful at various speeds. So the tip is knees down, toes up. That's the cue I remember. So when I'm sprinting, the tendency might be to pick up my knees really high to really go forward, but I want to think knees down in the sense of keeping my knees relaxed. If my knees are relaxed, that's going to mean I'm not engaging my quads and hip flexors as much. And how do you pick up your toes? Well, you have to engage your glutes and hamstrings. So think relaxing the knee. So let's say this is my knee. So that you want to feel this is relaxed, and the toe is the thing that's coming up. So if that cue works for you guys, great. If not, don't worry about it. So I didn't find this super useful for like running at slow or medium speeds, but when you're sprinting, because there's such a like larger range of movement and you need more mobility, I found that I can tend to activate the wrong thing. So this was a really useful cue. So check that out, see if it works for you guys. Forefoot instead of rear foot. So this is where kind of the controversy starts, and people are going to have pretty differing opinions on this stuff. Now, hopefully that's a little better. All right. This tip is going to go hand in hand with running either barefoot or in 5-finger shoes or minimalist shoes. I used to make fun of 5-finger shoes for the longest time, and then I tried it and I was like, oh my God, why haven't I done this sooner? The red star indicates that if you're going to do that, just don't injure yourself, because the mistake many people make, and that's why there's like all these lawsuits, is that they do too much too fast. So if you run, let's say 5 miles, I mentioned this in previous videos, but if you're a runner, let's say, and you run 5 miles, don't put on the shoes and suddenly run 5 miles. Work up to it. Maybe run half a mile, maybe run like a few blocks, and work up to it over the course of several weeks. Because just like, you know, the toes, your feet, all those muscles that have never been worked when you've been like foot binding your feet in normal shoe wear, they have to get used to and adjusted to exercising. So that takes time to build up. So just make sure to ease into them. Don't just do your normal, 30, 40-minute walk on day one. Now, why is this so good? I feel really strongly about this. First of all, just so you guys know, like I've never been a big runner. I've enjoyed the like 10, 15-minute jog. You know, you're breaking a sweat, you get that endorphin rush. It can feel good sometimes doing some sprints. But I've never liked long distance running. And I still don't. But that said, when I switched to kind of more, I happen to be lucky to have a beach where I can run. But also, if you can run on grass and to have less impact on your knees. And when you're wearing these minimalist shoes, like such as 5-finger shoes, there's others, it need not be 5-finger shoes. You will find that your biomechanics change. So I used to really not enjoy running, and like the second I tried them, it's not that it wasn't even a mental change. My body just felt so excited about the sensation that I was like, hey, I want to run. I feel like running. And I would just start running, I don't know, 2 miles, 5 miles. Like I said, I'm not a runner, but just a few times I couldn't help myself. It felt so great because it's like, you guys know when you come home like at the end of the day and your feet are tired and you take off your shoes and socks, that relaxing feeling when you can finally move your toes. That's how it felt for me to run. I was just like, whoa, I want more of this. This feels so great. So normally what happens in sneakers is you're doing heel to toe. So it's like this. So even though you have the padding on your sneakers, it still is bad biomechanics because you're coming down on your heel. So no matter how much padding you have, there is no biomechanical bracing other than your heel that's softening the impact. Whereas if you're going like this, or kind of like midfoot, then your ankle is a natural shock absorber. So not only are your toes getting a little more work, but if you've ever tried like jumping rope, just being like real springy, try jumping on your heels. You'll find it's nearly impossible, or you can do it a few times, but it'll hurt. But you can jump on your toes, you can jump rope and feel real springy. So you're gonna have to change your entire running technique. So I wanna emphasize that while 1 and 2 can be sort of like immediate shifts, like, oh, activate your glutes, change your stride, you're like, oh wow, that feels good. For number 3, it might feel weird, like the first, several times. You're like, wow, it's like you just, you're using another hand or something. If you're a righty, now you're like said, use your left hand. It's gonna feel weird, but once you get used to it, I know for myself, I absolutely love running. Like even if it's a short run, 5-10 minutes, a sprint, just changing that biomechanics just changed my world. Now, in the interest of, I don't want to push an agenda on you guys, so I want to be honest. There's 2 drawbacks I've experienced with the 5-finger shoes, like the Vibram shoes, for example. One drawback is that in the winter, they can be pretty cold because they're very thin. So I often don't wear them in the winter. So that's a drawback. Now I'm sure there's workarounds, but that I'm giving you, I'm giving you the honest story here. So that's one drawback. The other drawback, which is really annoying, is that your feet are going to be smelly. Now they have socks where you could wear these 5-toe socks. The other thing is you could also wash your shoes, right? So if you've gone on a few runs, now the shoes, your toes, in the beginning it was fine, but I noticed after a while, like your toes, the shoes, it really gets funky. So you can't, before I would just wash my toes like soap and water or something, but I really had to take like a scrubber and scrub them because otherwise it just smelled bad. So that's a pretty big annoying factor. Now, if you have foot pain or you love to run, I think that's, it's worth having smelly toes and just having to scrub them and wash them. But also you could just, put the shoes in the laundry and wash your shoes. But I'm just saying that's a nuisance. Like if you're wearing socks and sneakers, that's an extra hassle that you wouldn't have with socks and sneakers. So just be prepared for that. Despite that, I recommend all of you guys at least try it once in your life. Get a pair. You may not like them, so don't get another pair again. So definitely check those out. So by having these 5-finger shoes, your toes are splayed out. So some people say they've noticed their feet got larger, but basically your toes are in an almost like a barefoot natural state. Your toes are gonna feel amazing. And it's not just for running. When you walk in them, it also feels great. I find that I like walking just so I could, use the shoes. It just feels so, before I was like, oh, I don't really want to walk like a long distance. My feet get tired, but now my feet feel so great. So I cannot recommend this switch highly enough. Also, let's say you're like, I don't want to get the shoes. Can I just do the toe strike versus the heel strike with my normal sneakers? The answer is yes, you can. I've tried it. It's not as efficient as with the minimalist shoes. The reason being, a lot of sneakers have this like heel support in the back, so you can't let the back of your heel drop as much. So when you're doing this, you're only gonna go like up to here instead of down kind of to here. So it's not gonna feel as great. So I'd say you'd still get about 60% of the benefit. So it's still gonna be great. Like if I have to run somewhere, I'll often do kind of like a midfoot strike. So definitely check that out. Also, I forgot to mention that, also pardon about the sun's angle stuff. So I forgot to mention that these are not just like, hey, my Ilya's thoughts. A lot of the stuff, I mean, I'm recommending this because this has worked for me. But, you know, for your guys' knowledge, and I'll link this in the description, there's been studies that show that people that run this way from toe to heel actually have less pain and fewer injuries. So this has been sort of, I don't want to say the case is closed, but there's strong evidence for this being a better running style. And if you look at a lot of sort of kind of like people that run in like westernized, or people that run basically like barefoot or in certain third world countries, this is how people have been running forever. If you run barefoot, or if you're like sprinting, running toe to heel is actually the natural way to run. We would never run heel to toe. That actually, the sneakers have encouraged us to do that because they've given us this extra support. So what I'm saying that might be a little counterintuitive is that even with the extra sneaker support, you're still going to do worse than if you just change your running style. In fact, just to test this out, I've run barefoot. I don't recommend you guys do this, but a few times I've actually gone barefoot running on like a city street. I know like hygienically maybe that's not a good idea, like glass or whatever, but I went toe to heel and I actually felt less pain than running in sneakers on concrete going the other way. So your ankle is phenomenally great at shock absorption, and your body mechanics will change. So I really want you guys to look into this further, and I think this can help a lot of folks. Also, you guys should know I had a prior knee injury, so I was already susceptible to knee pain, and so this has allowed me to run more. So I'm not, I really have no time or interest in like abstract theories. I tried it one way, I tried it the other way. I like this better. If you guys like it, the other way, be my guest. I want to just help you guys, so take it or leave it. Now, one other note. I want to talk about landing light versus landing heavy. I haven't really seen this talked about actually, I haven't seen this talked about anywhere. So I want to mention this. Everywhere you'll read, everybody will talk about landing light. Now, that's a great thing, especially like for running efficiency and for your joint health. If you're landing heavy, making a lot of noise, that probably means you're hitting your joints a lot more. So for general running, yes, landing light's great. But I found for myself, there was one application of landing heavy that I actually liked. Now, maybe I'm delusional, so just take this, for what it's worth. I had this mysterious health issues for a while where I had like this side pain and I just felt fatigue for a long time. I went to the doctor, they checked all the tests, whether it was it mono, was it this? Anyway, they couldn't get to the bottom of it. All I know was I went for some really light runs, toe to heel with 5-finger shoes, and I would, rather than trying to run light on my feet, I would actually try to land a little heavier, but still going toe to heel. So I wasn't going heel to toe. So I was still landing in like a good way, but I try to actually land a little bit heavier. And for me, I felt that maybe it was a placebo, I don't know. I felt that encouraged some lymph drainage, because like for example, rebounding when you jump on a trampoline or anything any movement whatsoever encourages your lymph system to flow. So I know after doing some like 2-mile or 5-mile runs, like very easy, not for speed, just taking my sweet time. So maybe I take, 40 minutes to do a 4-mile run or something. Just like I wasn't trying to set any records, but I was going like boom. And I was also combining that with deep breathing and even, I'll talk about this later, but like a little bit of pounding on over here. There's like a thymus gland area. And the extra impact actually felt great for me. Now, I don't recommend this if for like performance or for like long distance or as a regular way to run. So please don't land heavy in general. But that said, maybe if you're on a soft surface on grass or on the sand on the beach, it may be like an interesting thing to explore. Just make sure you do it very carefully in moderation. I don't want to, suddenly this to become like a viral thing and now everybody's landing heavy and you guys are all having pain. So you might want to check this out. This is not for everybody. This is only for a small segment I want to emphasize that might have some health issues and want to get some extra lymph flow. You might want to actually try landing a little heavy for even just for like 5 minutes in place or something. That might feel good. So there's an upside and downside. Like I said, the downside, it might not be great for your knees, but it can help drain your lymph fluid. So, all right, I'll leave it there. So in summary, we have the proper stride with your foot under you when you land, glute activation. For the glute activation, I mentioned this in the walking video, but here's the counterintuitive thing. The tendency is to want to put your foot out, but to move forward, you actually have to push off backward. So the last thing you want to do is actively pick up your foot. You want to push off and your hand swing, and the pushing off is just going to get your body to counterbalance and your foot's just going to come out naturally. So that's the thing with glute activation. You should feel your glutes working, as well as your toes, your calves, but the glutes. And 3, like I said, if you switch over to forefoot instead of rear foot, you might become a believer like I've become. All right, I hope that was helpful. And in the next video, we're going to talk about other things. All right, see you guys.